Marcus had no idea that the tired-looking woman he shared his lunch with was one of the 12 beings who controlled all travel between stars. Just knew she looked hungry, and his mother always packed him extra. The Galactic Embassy's maintenance balcony was a place where few ventured, reserved for those like Marcus Webb. At 29 years old, he had been here long enough to know every nook and cranny of the facility, every floorboard that squeaked when you stepped on it just right, every corner that held the promise of solitude amidst a bustling world. On his way back from disposing of trash in one of the high-level waste chutes, Marcus noticed her again. It was the third day in a row had seen her sitting alone with an air of melancholy around her like a shroud. The woman's gray hair and faded clothes hinted at weariness that went beyond mere fatigue. There was something timeless about her gaze. "Excuse me," he called out, stopping just behind where she sat on the metal bench overlooking the endless stretch of space outside Earth's atmosphere. "I noticed you sitting here for a few days now." She turned slightly to acknowledge him, but didn't look surprised or particularly welcoming. Her eyes were distant, as if they saw things far beyond this balcony. Marcus fumbled with his words, feeling awkward, yet compelled by an inexplicable urge to help. "I have extra today." Reaching into the well-worn lunchbox that had been a constant companion for years, he pulled out half of what remained a peanut butter and jelly sandwich neatly wrapped in wax paper. He offered it without waiting for her response. "My mom always packs too much," he explained with a shrug, as if this were normal behavior rather than something extraordinary on the galactic scale. He sat down beside her, placing the sandwich carefully next to her hand. The woman stared at him as though seeing through his eyes and into some other plane of existence entirely. Then she looked back down at the offered lunch item with a mixture of confusion and profound awe etched onto her face. "You do not know who I am," she murmured, but there was no accusation in those words. Rather, they held an immense weight of unspoken truths. Marcus just smiled softly. "I don't need to." He met her gaze squarely despite the strange sensation that he shouldn't be doing so. "You looked hungry." Her eyes flicked up again, searching his face as if trying to understand this peculiar human reaction. The architect Veylis had been here for a reason: to observe and perhaps interfere with Earth's petition for Stargate access. She was far from alone in her travels. Others of her kind often followed behind, seeking answers or influence over such matters, but no one ever offered anything without some sort of expected return. Yet Marcus Webb, the maintenance worker, showed nothing but kindness based on simple observation and a small act rooted deeply within his upbringing. It took Veylis aback more than she cared to admit after countless witnessing every manipulation, bribe, lie that came her way in various guises across universes. For a moment, Marcus's mother's influence echoed through him as he spoke gently yet firmly, "That is enough." Veylis stared at the sandwich for what seemed like an eternity before finally taking it. Her fingers moved almost reverently over its surface as she unwrapped and bit into it with surprising delicacy given her immense power. Marcus watched silently, feeling a strange connection despite their vast differences. "Thank you," Veylis said softly, after swallowing her first bite. It wasn't gratitude for the food itself, but rather recognition of an unexpected kindness in this universe, where such gestures rarely occurred outside of familial bonds or contractual agreements. "Don't mention it," Marcus replied with genuine warmth, though his eyes betrayed a slight unease from having someone so utterly otherworldly sit beside him without any apparent intent to take advantage. Yet he pushed those thoughts away, because she hadn't done anything wrong, had simply seen something that needed addressing, and acted on instinct. Veylis took another bite before looking back towards Marcus, her expression changing slightly, as if weighing how best to proceed with this unexpected turn of events. There was no mistaking the respect now apparent in her gaze, despite everything telling her not to trust anyone without a clear agenda. "Who are you?" she asked softly, instead, more curious than suspicious at this point. Marcus blinked before offering his name with practiced simplicity. "I'm Marcus Webb." "Veylis," she replied slowly. It felt strange introducing herself as one might in any other scenario, but given their respective positions, it was both amusing and somewhat humbling how these actions played out between them despite the chasm that existed. For a moment, they sat there under the indifferent gaze of space itself, two souls existing within vastly different realities finding common ground over something so simple. Marcus finished his sandwich, while Veylis continued to eat hers, with careful consideration, given each bite now holding more meaning than mere sustenance could provide. Little did either know how this brief encounter would set into motion changes that rippled across galaxies, challenging perceptions and expectations alike about humanity's place in the universe. But for now, all they knew was the quiet satisfaction of a small gesture shared between strangers amidst endless stars. The maintenance balcony of the Galactic Embassy was a place most avoided due to its exposed location and stark view of the cosmos above. Marcus Webb stood there each day, his lunchbox in hand, seeking nothing more than a moment's peace away from the daily grind of his job as a janitor. Today felt different. He noticed an old woman sitting by herself, with weary eyes that spoke volumes about her journey through countless galaxies. As usual, she was dressed simply in gray clothes, her hair a dull shade that matched her surroundings. Marcus hesitated for just a moment before walking over and offering half of his sandwich to the woman, who looked far too tired for such solitude. She accepted it with surprising delicacy, almost reverently, unwrapping each piece as if they were sacred relics. Over the following days, this small ritual became a daily occurrence. They ate lunch together on the balcony, the routine providing Marcus with an unexpected companion and Veylis with something akin to normalcy among the chaos of her millennia-long existence. The conversations that began around their shared meals were simple at first, Marcus talking about his job as a janitor, detailing mundane tasks like cleaning corridors and fixing broken lights. He spoke fondly of his mother, who had raised him alone in the city's outskirts before she passed away 5 years ago. "What do you miss most?" Veylis asked one day, her tone soft but curious. She seemed genuinely interested rather than seeking any ulterior motive, as others might assume when speaking to someone like herself. Marcus thought for a moment before answering truthfully, "My mom's cooking. Every Sunday she'd make these incredible meals, and it was always my favorite time of the week." Veylis listened intently, without interrupting him or probing further into his personal life. She took another bite from her sandwich. Marcus had brought variety over the days, and observed the quiet contentment on Marcus's face as he described those cherished moments. "I don't have much to offer," Veylis said quietly, almost to herself more than Marcus after a pause in their conversation. "I'm not sure if I know how anymore." This caught Marcus off guard, but only for a moment before his usual instinct took over, agging kindness without expectations. "You've offered yourself," he replied gently. Veylis stared at him with newfound respect, her eyes wide and almost human, like in their expression of surprise mixed with awe. No one had ever seen through the facade she put up so effortlessly. No one expected anything from someone like Veylis purely because it seemed impossible amidst all the manipulation that existed throughout countless worlds. "Tell me about your dreams," Marcus asked, his curiosity piqued despite knowing little to nothing about her true nature beyond what any other galactic traveler might know. He was merely reaching out, as he always did when seeing someone in need of a friend or listener. Veylis hesitated before she began with cautious honesty. "I travel the stars observing different species, their cultures and conflicts." She paused, choosing her words carefully to hide just how much power and influence she truly held over them all. "Sometimes I wonder if my presence even matters." Marcus listened attentively without interrupting, until he noticed a shift in her demeanor. Her eyes seemed distant despite sitting right beside him under the vast expanse of space that was their constant companion on the balcony. "Do you ever dream about something else?" Marcus prodded gently, his voice soft, but carrying an underlying sense of sincerity and genuine curiosity towards understanding more than merely making conversation for the sake of it. She looked at him sharply now. This man, who cleaned corridors, had somehow breached through layers she never thought existed. "Oh no," Veylis admitted softly, after a moment's pause, her voice laced with weariness, but also something else, longing perhaps. "What do you want?" Marcus asked suddenly. The question hung in the air between them, like an asteroid threatening to crash down upon everything familiar and comfortable for both of them. It was honest, without pretense or expectation attached, just pure inquiry based on genuine care that existed purely because it did rather than needing reciprocation. Veylis stared at him then, eyes searching, as if trying to find the answer in his warm brown gaze. Something so different yet strangely familiar too. No one had asked her this question in millennia, not since before she took up residence among those who sought power through knowledge and control of stargates, rather than genuine connection or understanding across species. "I don't know," Veylis said again softly, almost to herself more than Marcus now, but he heard it clearly. She sounded exhausted by the very idea, yet also intrigued by this man's simple act that challenged everything she believed about her own existence and purpose throughout countless eons of life, as one of the first. Marcus reached out then without thinking twice, and placed a hand lightly over hers, where they sat side by side, his touch warm despite knowing what awaited beyond those walls. "You should try to figure it out," he said quietly but firmly. There was something almost prophetic about the statement given who exactly stood before him, an architect of stars, power enough to end civilizations with, but also utterly human in her moment of confusion and need for guidance. And so they continued their daily lunches together on that maintenance balcony, where only space looked down upon them unjudgmentally. Each day brought new conversations tinged by familiarity despite all differences, Marcus sharing stories about his job while Veylis spoke cautiously at first, then more freely over time about her long life and observations across galaxies. One particularly cold afternoon as winter approached, the sun was low on the horizon, casting long shadows through windows and onto their quiet corner of the balcony. They sat closer together than ever before, sharing silence punctuated by bites from Marcus' sandwich that had become a staple between them. "Tell me something true about yourself," Veylis finally said after several moments of silent reflection under this winter sky. She sounded almost desperate now for genuine connection, despite all caution ingrained within her existence, as one so powerful yet weary beyond measure over countless millennia. Marcus smiled softly at her before looking away slightly, his eyes reflecting a deep sense of peace and contentment that seemed impossible to come by amidst the chaos Veylis was used to. "I'm just trying to make things better," he said honestly, after another moment's pause. Veylis looked back towards him sharply now, truly seeing this man for who he claimed to be, not some hero or savior, but simply someone doing what felt right because it did. She nodded slowly in understanding before reaching out tentatively with her own hand and placing it lightly over his, where their fingers met atop the table between them. Neither spoke more after that moment of silent acknowledgement, no words needed when actions conveyed so much already spoken yet left unsaid, amidst endless stars above guiding everything below, but also feeling every beat through these small human connections made amongst vast cosmic distances. Little did either know how this brief encounter would set into motion changes rippling across galaxies, challenging perceptions and expectations alike about humanity's place in the universe. But for now, all that mattered was sitting here together under indifferent space itself, finding common ground over something so simple yet profound amidst endless stars. Winter had set in, casting long shadows through the windows of the galactic embassy and onto the maintenance balcony, where Marcus and Veylis often sat together. On this particular cold afternoon, they were closer than ever before, sharing silence, punctuated by bites from Marcus' sandwich that had become a staple between them. "Tell me something true about yourself," Veylis finally said after several moments of silent reflection under the winter sky. She sounded almost desperate for genuine connection, despite all caution ingrained within her existence, as one so powerful yet weary beyond measure over countless millennia. Marcus smiled softly at her before looking away slightly, his eyes reflecting a deep sense of peace and contentment that seemed impossible to come by amidst the chaos Veylis was used to. "I'm just trying to make things better," he said honestly, after another moment's pause. Veylis looked back towards him sharply now, truly seeing this man for who he claimed to be, not some hero or savior, but simply someone doing what felt right because it did. She nodded slowly, in understanding, before reaching out tentatively with her own hand and placing it lightly over his, where their fingers met atop the table between them. Neither spoke more after that moment of silent acknowledgement, no words needed, when actions conveyed so much already spoken yet left unsaid amidst endless stars above, guiding everything below, but also feeling every beat through these small human connections made amongst vast cosmic distances. Marcus was returning to the janitor's closet with his empty lunchbox in hand, Veylis having long since departed, as she usually did. As he walked down a dimly lit hallway leading back from the balcony, something caught his eye: a figure standing just around the corner at an intersection of hallways. His heart skipped a beat when he saw Ambassador Crethver step out into view. "Marcus Webb," the ambassador's deep voice resonated in the quiet corridor, sending shivers down Marcus's spine. "Yes, sir," Marcus replied meekly, stopping where he stood. He didn't like to draw attention, but couldn't help feeling intimidated by one of the galaxy's most influential ambassadors. Crethver narrowed his eyes and stepped closer, a sinister aura surrounding him despite his formal attire. "I've been watching you for some time now," the ambassador said slowly, as if tasting each word before delivering it. Marcus blinked in confusion. Watching me? Why?" The ambassador took another step forward until he was nearly nose to nose with Marcus. His eyes glinted coldly under the fluorescent lights. "You've been spending an awful lot of time with someone who shouldn't interest a janitor like yourself." "Who?" Marcus asked, puzzled but trying to remain calm. Crethver's lips curled into a thin smile that did nothing to reassure Marcus. "That tired-looking woman in gray goes by the name Veylis. She's not just any visitor, she is the architect, one of 12 beings who control all interstellar travel." Marcus's eyes widened, his mouth falling open as he tried to process this revelation about a seemingly ordinary woman. "Someone like you doesn't belong near her," Crethver continued menacingly. "Stay away from Veylis or disappear." He stepped back and turned around without another word, leaving Marcus alone in the now oppressive silence of the hallway. Marcus' mind raced as he stumbled into his small room for a moment to gather himself. Stay away from who? Why? He thought about what Crethver had said. The architect was Veylis, the woman with whom he ate lunch daily, who seemed so weary and lost in her own thoughts. She held the power to end civilizations, but she also shared his sandwich when no one else would look at him twice. How could someone as powerful as an architect need or want a simple human's company? The more Marcus thought about it, the more confused he became. He couldn't shake off the feeling that there was something deeply wrong with how this all played out. His heart sank to his stomach when another frightening idea struck. Veylis must be in danger too. He had no way of knowing if she needed help, or why Crethver would threaten him, but he knew one thing for certain: couldn't let her down again after what seemed like such an honest connection between them. Marcus left his room with a renewed sense of determination and headed back towards the balcony where Veylis often waited. When Marcus arrived at their usual spot on the maintenance balcony, he found it empty save for the brisk winter wind rustling through the air vents. He frowned slightly in worry. She was usually here by now. The sun had set hours ago, leaving only starlight to illuminate his path as he began wandering around looking for her. He finally spotted Veylis, sitting alone, near a window overlooking one of the main corridors, inside the embassy building, where Crether's threat still echoed in his mind, like a dark cloud hanging over him. She was hunched forward, resting her forehead against the cool glass, as if she had been watching something outside. "Are you okay?" Marcus asked quietly once he reached her side. She looked up at him with tired eyes that seemed to carry galaxies within them. "I'm fine," Veylis said softly, but there was a shadow of uncertainty in her voice, perhaps from Crether's warning, or the countless threats she must have faced across millennia. She turned back towards the window, where he noticed Ambassador Crether walking by again with an air of purposeful arrogance. "Why would someone threaten me?" Marcus whispered to himself more than Veylis now, but heard it clearly. He understood his place in society, that no one offered her anything without wanting something in return, yet she had shared lunch with him, and listened as he did the same for her. Veylis watched Crether go by again before turning back towards Marcus. "There are forces at play here I cannot fully comprehend," Veylis admitted softly, placing a hand on his shoulder briefly to comfort him despite their situation. "And I shouldn't be part of this?" Marcus asked with genuine concern in his voice. She smiled faintly, but there was no joy behind it, only recognition. No one should get involved unless they must. But if anyone can defy expectations. Marcus squeezed her hand gently without speaking any more words, leaving them both to ponder what that truly meant for their fates amidst the vastness of stars and galaxies beyond. Little did either know how this brief encounter would set into motion changes rippling across galaxies, challenging perceptions and expectations alike about humanity's place in the universe. But for now, all that mattered was sitting here together under indifferent space itself, finding common ground over something so simple yet profound amidst endless stars. The days since Marcus last shared his sandwich with Veylis had been unusually quiet on the maintenance balcony at the Galactic Embassy. It was like her presence, though subtle and unnoticed by most others, brought a kind of warmth that now seemed to be missing from Marcus' routine. One afternoon, as he took out his lunchbox for what felt like an eternity without her there, the familiar sense of disquiet settled in him again. He hadn't seen Veylis since she vanished after Crether's threats, and it gnawed at him that something could be wrong, but with no way to know where to look. That same day, unbeknownst to Marcus, the architect Veylis was searching the vast corridors of Earth's galactic embassy. She had assumed her true form momentarily in an attempt to locate the young janitor who had been the first honest soul she encountered across countless aeons and worlds. Her radiant being illuminated hallways as though a nebulae had wandered into the building, yet no one noticed except for the briefest flicker of recognition from a seasoned guard. Veylis' search ended at an unexpected place, the hospital wing, where Marcus lay on a bed after Crether's men found him and decided he was getting too close to their plans. They had beaten him severely, leaving his body bruised and broken while his mind filled with fear for the mysterious woman who shared her lunch. As Veylis approached, she felt an odd connection to this place. It resonated like a hum from deep within her core, calling out to her true form once more. She slipped into her disguise again, but knew that wasn't enough. What Crether had done was unforgivable by any standard of cosmic justice. Stepping inside the hospital room, she found Marcus unconscious on his bed with monitors beeping quietly beside him. Her heart, if such a term applied to an entity like herself, felt heavy knowing how much pain this young man suffered because he helped her once without expecting anything in return. "Marcus," Veylis whispered as she approached the bedside. "I'm here." She placed a hand on his forehead, and instantly warmth flooded through him. The bruises began to fade from his skin, bones mended within seconds under the glow of starlight that emanated softly around her touch. Marcus stirred, opening his eyes slowly. "Veylis," he croaked out in disbelief at seeing her after all these days. She smiled gently down at him, a rare expression full of something akin to gratitude and wonderment. "I should have come sooner." Marcus' mind raced with questions, but forced himself to focus on one thing, making sure Veylis was okay too. He tried sitting up despite the sudden ease in his body's pain. "What happened? Why are you here?" Veylis sighed softly, her gaze shifting beyond him for a moment, as if seeing through walls into far off realms of power and darkness. She returned to face Marcus fully then. "Your kindness set something into motion," she began quietly, but with conviction in her voice now stronger than before due to the healing act just performed upon herself as much as him. "And others are not pleased by that." Marcus nodded, understanding dawning on his face about Crether's men and their threats, aimed at silencing any threat posed by Marcus sharing food with someone so unexpected. "Will you be all right?" he asked again with genuine concern, this time more than ever before since seeing the full extent of Crether's cruelty inflicted upon him for such a small act of kindness. "Yes, I will," Veylis reassured him, "but it is clear now that Crether must answer for his actions." She stood from her perch by Marcus' bed, then turned to walk out, with no need to check the monitors or ask how he would fare next time. They were merely minor injuries compared to what others had seen in her true form. "Wait," Marcus called after her as she approached the door. You're not staying?" Veylis paused, looking back at him over her shoulder with eyes that shone like distant stars about to fade away once more into shadowy realms only they could traverse alone or together amidst infinite darkness between galaxies and lives lived long ago. "No," Veylis replied softly yet resolutely, "but your kindness today was not wasted on me." Marcus watched her leave, the door closing behind her, leaving him feeling both lightened by healing and heavy with knowing more than just a story now lay ahead for them amidst stars far above Earth's skies, where power meant everything except when offered nothing in return. With new resolve stirring within his heart despite lingering injuries upon his body, Marcus decided he couldn't let Veylis go alone against forces much greater than Crether and his ilk. He began planning ways to gather information without risking another beating from the thugs of galactic politics who cared little for anyone except themselves. Meanwhile, outside Earth's embassy, in a quiet street nearby under cover of nightfall, the architect Veylis shed her disguise completely once more as she stepped out into open air where starlight danced freely across pavement. Her true form was awe-inspiring and terrifying all at once, skin like flowing starlight itself, hair made from pure cosmic energy weaving through the sky around her head in ethereal patterns only seen by those brave enough or foolish to look upon such beauty. Her eyes now shone not just with nebulae, but contained dying suns. Galaxies within them burned brightly and dimmed swiftly as she walked towards Crether's lavish estate with purposeful steps that cracked the stone beneath her feet with every stride taken. She did this deliberately, marking a trail of destruction ahead of her march. When Veylis reached Ambassador Crether's grand entranceway carved into solid rock, like some ancient temple long forgotten by time itself, until now brought back to life under starlight streaming down from above where she stood framed against backdrop of eternal dark space. She knocked once firmly, 3 taps precisely spaced apart, as if counting out beats, before silence returned and door creaked open, revealing a surprised Crether who stammered initial greeting before seeing her clearly standing there. "Architect Veylis," he stuttered nervously, but tried to regain composure quickly. "What brings you here? I thought we had concluded all matters necessary." "I have come for the truth, Crether," she replied calmly yet with an undercurrent of power in each word, spoken low and clear as night itself settling over Earth after stars went down into sleep. Crether's eyes darted about behind her back, then looked up once more, meeting Veylis' gaze head on where cosmos met mortal fear. He knew well enough what came next. No negotiation here, only judgment, delivered swiftly, without need for endless debate or diplomatic niceties masking true intent beneath layers of carefully crafted words meant to deceive. His fate was sealed in that moment by one young janitor's simple act of kindness under bright sun and dim stars on balcony far below, where now cosmic justice played out its final scene above Earth, nestled safely between galaxies, unaware yet unprepared for what came next from beyond its reaches into realms only architect Veylis could traverse alone, or with allies willing to defy expectations against all odds. And thus, their story continued amidst endless stars, a tale of unexpected connections and profound consequences that rippled across universes, challenging perceptions and expectations about humanity's place among celestial beings far more ancient and powerful than any single race could ever claim dominion over. Marcus Webb woke up to a bright light that seemed too intense for dawn's early rays. He blinked, his eyes open slowly, trying to adjust to this sudden burst of illumination. It took him a moment to realize he wasn't in the familiar dimness of his tiny apartment, but on one of the balconies at the galactic embassy where he worked. His first thought was that Veylis must be nearby. She had left her disguise behind when she entered Crether's estate, and her radiant form had been blindingly bright even in that dark space. But now there wasn't any sign of anything unusual until his gaze shifted to the corner of the balcony. There, sitting cross-legged on a concrete slab, was Veylis. Her true form glowed with starlight, so brilliant it almost seemed like she was surrounded by miniature suns within her own body. The nebulae in her eyes swirled and pulsed as if they were living entities in their own right. "The Veylis," Marcus stammered, his voice barely a whisper through the shock of seeing such an incredible being so close to him. The architect Veylis turned towards him with an expression that was almost gentle. "Good morning," she said simply, her words resonant and clear despite their simplicity. Marcus squinted at her form, trying to reconcile this sight with everything he thought about the world around him. "That was you the whole time?" Veylis nodded, a small smile playing on her lips for just an instant before it faded away into that ancient weariness she seemed to carry with every step and breath. "You shared your sandwich with someone who controls interstellar travel," Veylis stated matter-of-factly. "Why did you do that? How could such a simple action hold any meaning?" Marcus sat up, feeling the warmth of his morning meal still lingering in his stomach from yesterday's encounter. He thought back to when he saw her sitting alone on another balcony, how she seemed so tired and forlorn. "My mom taught me to be kind," Marcus said finally, looking at Veylis with a mixture of confusion and determination. "Does it matter who you are?" Veylis tilted her head slightly, the cosmic energy in her hair dancing softly as if responding to his words alone. There was something almost childlike about her reaction, surprise mixed with curiosity. "Most beings would not offer me anything without expecting a reward," she said slowly, each word measured out carefully like they were precious gems being set into place one by one. "You risked your life because you thought I might need help." "Why?" Marcus blinked, trying to process this new perspective from someone who had seen countless civilizations and their struggles throughout time itself. "Maybe it's just human nature," he offered hesitantly. "I see people struggling every day at the embassy, always worried about themselves or fighting for power over others. You aren't like that." Veylis' eyes focused deeply on him now, her expression softer than before despite being as vast and unknowable as the cosmos herself. "And yet you saw a tired woman in need," she said quietly. "You treated me with kindness because of who I was to you, not what I could do for you or how much power I held." Marcus nodded thoughtfully, feeling a strange sense of peace wash over him despite his bewilderment at seeing such an ancient being so close and unguarded. "Yeah," he said simply. "I didn't know anything about your power then, still don't really, but it's just right to help someone who looks like they need it." Veylis watched Marcus for a long moment before she spoke again, her voice low but carrying an immense weight of wisdom and experience. "I have walked among countless species, she began softly. "Seen empires rise and fall beneath my gaze, without batting an eyelid at the chaos around me. But you," she paused here, looking away momentarily, as if searching through millennia worth of memories before meeting Marcus' eyes once more with renewed intensity. "You are different because your kindness is true." Marcus felt a warmth spread across his cheeks, but he didn't feel embarrassed. Instead, there was an unexpected pride swelling within him at these words coming from such a formidable figure. "I've always tried to be," he admitted quietly, feeling both humbled and affirmed in this moment. "Does that mean anything?" Veylis nodded once more, her eyes reflecting galaxies and stars, as she spoke with the clarity of ancient truth being revealed for just one person who had seen beyond titles and power plays. "It means everything." As Marcus sat there, absorbing these new revelations about himself and Veylis, he felt a profound sense of connection despite knowing so little about this enigmatic architect. He didn't know how many lives she had touched with her silent observations, or what grander plans were at play beyond his simple daily existence as a janitor on an insignificant planet. But for now, it was enough to understand that in sharing something small, a sandwich from his lunchbox, had made a difference perhaps more significant than he could ever have imagined possible. And seeing Veylis like this vulnerable and grateful rather than the terrifying force she undoubtedly represented brought home just how much potential there lay within each of them, no matter what they might think about themselves. The council chamber was a place of grandeur and gravity, its walls adorned with holographic murals depicting the ancient history of Stargate construction. Across the galaxy, the 12 architects sat in their customary positions around an oval table made from rare meteoric wood. Each architect represented a different facet of galactic civilization, commerce, defense, education, culture, and more. Today's agenda was clear: to vote on Earth's petition for access to the interstellar network. Earth had been making overtures about joining this exclusive club for decades, but their aggressive expansionism and lack of diplomacy had continually stalled any progress toward formal membership. The architects were not known for being sentimental or easily swayed by emotional appeals. They valued logic and stability above all else, and so far, Earth's application had always been met with a unanimous no. Veylis took her seat at the table as the others arrived, their imposing forms settling into chairs that seemed to mold around them in deference to power. She was dressed once again in her disguise-attired gray-haired woman in simple clothes, yet she could sense every eye upon her. "Earth's petition has been reviewed," the chair of commerce began without preamble, opening the floor for discussion. "We have concluded that they are not ready." Marcus had no idea where Veylis was at this moment. He continued to go about his day as usual on the maintenance balcony outside the Galactic Embassy. He knew nothing of Stargate access or petitions beyond what others would casually mention in passing, and today's lunch was unremarkable except for its contents: a peanut butter sandwich and an apple from his mother's care. "I agree," said the architect of defense with cold precision. "Their recent wars have destabilized several neighboring systems." "True," echoed another voice at the table, "and their technology is still primitive in comparison to our standards." The conversation went on like this, each member contributing a reason why Earth should not be granted access until it was Veylis' turn. "I do not agree with denying them," she said quietly but firmly, catching everyone's attention instantly. The room fell silent as the architects turned their full gaze toward her, some even leaning forward to better hear what had clearly been a surprise declaration. "Veylis," asked the chair of commerce carefully, "you are known for impartiality, above all else. What has changed your mind?" Veylis looked around at each face in turn, before settling on Marcus' image flashing through her thoughts, and she smiled softly to herself despite knowing only one person here would see it. Her eyes moved back up to the chair of commerce. "A human being," Veylis started slowly, "shared his lunch with me when I was disguised as a mere mortal woman." This statement echoed in silence before murmurs began among the other architects, their confusion palpable, but also tinged with curiosity at this unprecedented turn of events. "What difference did that make?" asked one impatiently. "He treated me not for my supposed worth," Veylis continued thoughtfully, "but because I looked like someone who needed help." The architect of culture leaned forward slightly, intrigued by these unusual arguments, though she remained skeptical given the gravity of their decision. "Earth is aggressive and power-hungry. How does this single act outweigh such significant risks?" pressed another member with authority over trade routes and economic stability. "I believe," Veylis said with quiet conviction that carried across the room effortlessly, "that true kindness without expectation can alter the course of civilizations." The others exchanged looks, each considering this new perspective that went against everything they believed in as a council making rational decisions based solely on logic and precedents. "Why did you change your vote?" another architect asked finally, after several minutes' contemplation, addressing Veylis directly now rather than through the chair. "Because one man shared his lunch with me when I had nothing to offer," she replied simply. "He protected me because he thought I was weak, and more importantly, because he asked what I wanted instead of what he could get out of it." This resonated deeply within Veylis, for no being in the universe, not even God, had ever treated her this way since long before Earth had been formed. "So you changed your vote based on one personal interaction?" questioned the architect of defense skeptically, but more respectfully than earlier. "Is that wise?" "Indeed," she responded without hesitation or apology, because she knew it to be so beyond any doubt held by others present. She did not speak lightly. Her words carried immense power and significance across millennia. "But this could change everything for Earth and us." "It already has," Veylis said softly, meeting each architect's gaze steadily before looking back at the chair of commerce, who nodded slowly in understanding despite his initial doubts. "Marcus Webb is the first person in 3,000 years to treat me with true kindness, unburdened by expectation or desire for reward." The architects were silent once more as Veylis's words sunk deeply into their minds, challenging everything they believed about humanity and themselves. "The council's decision," declared the chair of commerce finally, after a momentary pause, "is that Earth will be granted access to Stargate technology under strict supervision." As this news rippled through galactic systems, signaling profound change for multiple species, including those on Earth still unaware their fate had shifted, Veylis found herself leaving the chamber and returning directly back to the maintenance balcony outside, where Marcus was eating his lunch quietly. "Marcus," she said softly as he looked up surprised at her sudden appearance, "I have a proposition." His eyes widened before settling into an earnest expression of curiosity mixed with genuine concern over whatever news this might bring. "You see, Earth now has Stargate access," Veylis began hesitantly, testing how much or little to explain while still maintaining his anonymity and comfort level and dealing directly with such matters. "But we need someone who understands the human perspective fully." Marcus blinked, trying to process what she was saying and why it seemed so urgent from her tone. "You want me to be your liaison?" he asked slowly, realizing where this conversation might lead despite feeling overwhelmed at its implications. "That is correct," Veylis confirmed gently. "As a way for both parties involved in these negotiations." He nodded thoughtfully, trying to reconcile his own sense of duty and loyalty with newfound opportunities that felt surreal against everything else he knew about himself. "And I would still eat lunch together?" Marcus asked finally, feeling the need to affirm what had brought them closer despite their vast difference. Veylis smiled warmly, for once fully herself instead of a disguise, revealing galaxies in her eyes as she looked deeply into his brown ones, with genuine affection shining through all ancient wisdoms and powers. "Indeed," she confirmed softly, "you have done much already by being who you are." Marcus felt warmth spread across him despite knowing little about this enigmatic figure save for one act of kindness that changed everything. As the days turned to weeks, Marcus found himself navigating new paths he never imagined possible while still retaining those small moments on the maintenance balcony. He continued eating his sandwiches from his mother's lunchbox, but now shared them with Veylis openly, without any expectation or agenda between them except mutual respect and understanding of humanity's potential. One afternoon, as they sat together, Marcus looked over at her curiously before speaking up hesitantly. "I still don't understand how all this happened," he admitted honestly. "I'm just a janitor, no one special." Veylis turned to look directly into his eyes, now filled with starlight and nebulae mirroring his own sincerity despite the vast chasm of existence between them. "You are the first person in 3,000 years who asked what I wanted," she said softly but clearly. "And that is not Nobodith. That is everything." Marcus felt a strange sense of pride swelling within him at these words from such an ancient being, feeling both humbled and affirmed as they sat there together under the vast expanse of sky beyond their balcony, overlooking Earth's bustling cityscape below. End.